as I said, my marriage has always been really difficult. David had some controlling tendencies. He would control the money, the finances, things that we bought, but he was most controlling in times that there were emotions. He wasn't comfortable when there were emotions involved, and so anytime that I was triggered or he was triggered, there were times that I remember that he was so afraid of drunks, and we ran into a couple of drunks. One time at night, there was a drunk asking us directions as we were putting our kids into the car, our sleeping kids into the car, and my husband locks me out of the car to talk to the drunk. And things like that. But when it got really bad was when he would corner me into a room or lock me into a car to force me to talk to him, to make things right, to try to fix the emotional problem that he saw. The problem was that he saw me as my mom, the way that my dad said that I was, the way that but my in-laws, his parents and brother said that I was. And the truth is that I was also afraid that I was like my mom. And that's kind of what kept me locked in that situation. I had been told now over these last 7 years that we've been 8 years that we've been discussing, that I was a child abuser, a monster, narcissistic, erratic, sociopathic, like my mom. And I was afraid of that, frankly. And so 7 years, this child was in our home. The 8th year, she was 6 months in my sister's home, and then ripped from that home from the accusations from my brother and his girlfriend, and then placed with my brother. So after 8 years, we finally get our rights relinquished, but it feels awful again. It feels awful. It feels like I lost my child again. I have some friends saying, congratulations, you're done with this horrible child. And it wasn't exactly that, because she was mine for 7 years, and it was hard, and it was re-triggering things that were hard for me from the past, from losing that baby so many years ago. As we were going through court again, I'm struggling with my husband and my marriage. I'm also struggling with my friends, and my friends they're not showing up for me. They're wanting things from me. They're seeing me as like a leader, a guide, or a healer in their life, as I'm starting to partake of these healing modalities that I'll discuss in later videos. And I'm having to set boundaries with my friends, and I'm virtually alone, feeling alone. And it gets to the point where, we're having one of these days again where I'm crying. I'm trying to get out of this cycle in my head. I'm stuck in my room, and my husband starts to get concerned for my well-being. And he calls my counselor, who tells him that if he feels unsafe, that he should take me to the hospital. So I end up having this discussion with my husband. I'm not even crying anymore. I just told him, he's talking to my counselor. I go, I take a bath. I'm calming myself down. I'm doing all the things that I've learned. And I tell him, I don't think I need to go to the hospital. But if you think that this is, what needs to happen, because I know this has been a pattern every single week. We've been going through this every single weekend. I cry for like 3 days. And it was like I did everything I knew that I could do. And if going to the hospital was one last thing to prove that, I'd done everything that I could, then I would go. So my husband drives me to the hospital. He tells me that he has these feelings along the way, that it's a bad decision, that he probably shouldn't do it, but he's going back and forth and back and forth. I'm in tears and brokenhearted because I have no one at this point, no one. And I get dropped off at the hospital. I'm in there for 4 days. It was awful. I'd been in the hospital for 4 days before for surgeries and for C-sections, but this was horrible. It was locked down, everything was bolted down, you know, like a insane asylum, which is essentially what it was. And we were monitored every 15 minutes. The nurses would come and check on us, whether we were sleeping. They would shine the flashlight into our faces to see if we were in bed still and we weren't dead. And they would ask us questions along the way, assessing when the right time to release us was. So I kind of got the hang of this game that they were playing, because it's kind of the game through the foster care system. It's ridiculous. You're not actually getting the help that you need. No offense to everyone who is doing their best to help. It just wasn't very helpful for me. And after 4 days of this, they decide that they're going to give me a ketamine treatment, which I had had several in the past. They wouldn't really listen to the dosage that I was used to. I told them that the experience was pleasant, fine, and I guess that wasn't enough, so they decided to hold me longer so that they could do another treatment 2 days later. And but amongst this, it did end up being one of the best things that could have happened for my husband, because I ended up having 2 counselors and 3 doctors during that time that told me that anyone in my situation that I was in would be depressed and would be struggling, and that the problem was at home. So I began to look at this like really, really clearly, beginning to see that there was a huge need for my marriage to change and for David to start working on his stuff, on his healing. And we ended up on this 3-way phone call with a counselor and I calling David at home. And in this phone call, the counselor says, "Why did you drop Melanie off at the hospital?" And David says, "Because she's not acting like herself. This isn't you, Melanie." And I was just shocked by that. And I was like, why do you think this isn't me? You know the life that I've been through. This is more me. This anger, this sadness, this expression that I'm having is more genuinely me than that good girl person who always tries to keep, you know, everyone happy and keep track of the house and the kids and do a better job, you know, than what I had growing up. And he was like, "Oh, you're right, that's true." And anyways, after I was able to tell him how many of those doctors and counselors had said the same thing, he was able to start looking into himself and thinking, man, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe there are things that I need to start looking at and start doing. And he actually began his own journey of healing. He started on his own therapy sessions and really started looking at what the porn had done to him in his life, what the divorce in his childhood had done, and what some of these controlling behaviors meant for him in our marriage. And there was a huge release for me to be able to really be free in my mind, realizing that I wasn't like my mom, that this controlling behavior had repeated over and over and over again in my life. The same thing that happened as a child was happening again in my life as an adult, and it was something that I could now see clearly and move past. So in my next videos, my plan is to share with you those step-by-step things that helped me to be where I am today, that helped me to heal and to even ease the process as I went along.